Wait, people actually live in places like this? Today, we're visiting 7 villages that seem completely impossible. And our first one is hiding inside the Himalayas. Meet Phugtal, a monastery that seems fused into the mountain. Apparently, normal building sites were just too easy. There's no road taking you straight to its door. Reaching Phugtal still means traveling through this wild landscape. Yet inside, daily life feels remarkably calm and peaceful. That may be the most incredible part. People made this work. And Phugtal is only the beginning. The desert gets even stranger. Then the desert suddenly does something completely unexpected. This is Wakachina, a tiny oasis surrounded by giant dunes. From above, it looks like someone dropped a village into sand. Down here, life feels surprisingly relaxed. Step beyond those palms, and the desert takes over again. Around here, even the neighborhood roads are made of sand. Yet people turned this unlikely oasis into a real community. Seen from up here, its isolation finally makes sense. A little water, a lot of sand, and somehow, home. Next, we trade endless sand for the edge of the Atlantic. And then the Faroe Islands give us this. This tiny village is Gausadalur, surrounded by mountains and sea. For generations, those mountains made getting here remarkably difficult. Before the tunnel, the old route crossed the mountain on foot. So yes, popping next door once required some commitment. A road tunnel finally made everyday travel much easier. But the quiet rhythm of village life never disappeared. Honestly, this might be the world's best backyard. Isolation shaped this place, but people learned to thrive here. Next, the houses aren't beside the rocks, they're between them. In Portugal, one village seems to have lost an argument with geology. This is Monsanto, where giant boulders became part of the neighborhood. And our first one is hiding inside the Himalayas. Moving the boulders. Apparently, building around them was easier. And somehow, all that stone still feels wonderfully welcoming. The landscape didn't move, so the architecture learned to adapt. People here made the obstacle part of everyday life. Climb higher, and the whole village becomes even more unbelievable. Wow! From above, it looks like someone dropped a village into sand. Next, an entire village hides behind a giant rock in the sea. From the mainland, you can barely see what's hiding back here. This is Monemvasia, a stone town beneath one enormous rock. Even its name means a place with just one entrance. Inside, the streets squeeze between centuries-old stone houses. Parking at the front door was clearly never the plan. Here, daily life learned to follow the shape of the rock. And behind those walls, life feels surprisingly warm and lively. Then you climb higher, and the view explains everything. People turned a natural fortress into a beautiful place to live. But our next village takes stone living much, much higher. Now this looks less like a village and more like a mountain crown. This is Al-Hajara, built high in Yemen's rugged mountains. Its tall stone houses seem to grow straight from the rock. Between these towers, everyday life continues in remarkably narrow streets. The audio includes of a stone. Around here, skipping leg day probably isn't an option. Living this high makes simple journeys a little less simple. So generations learned to build with what the mountain provided. From above, the engineering feels almost impossible. The mountain created the challenge. People created the answer. And our final village? It's inside a volcano. Yes, people really live inside this volcanic island. Aogashima rises alone from the Pacific Ocean. And the village sits within this dramatic volcanic landscape. For residents, this extraordinary view is simply home. Island life here means working closely with the land. Even the ground occasionally reminds you where you are. Remoteness makes everyday life here a little more complicated. Yet this small community keeps adapting and carrying on. Maybe the impossible places reveal just how adaptable we are. 7 impossible villages, and somehow, every one became home. And that's what makes these places so extraordinary. Different landscapes, different challenges, the same human determination. People didn't just survive these places, they made homes. And somehow, they made impossible look surprisingly beautiful. Although choosing a building lot here still looks complicated. Maybe humans are simply terrible at accepting impossible, And that's why we build things in places like this. And honestly, that stubbornness is pretty inspiring. Subscribe if exploring our strange world sounds like your thing. Because next, we're going where villages cling to vertical cliffs. And trust me, the view only gets crazier from here.